want to talk about something a little different this week. I know that I had a bit of fun with the last couple of videos, but I don't have a lot to joke about with this movie, but it's definitely one that I wanted to highlight. This week we're going to look at the movie Hikiko. I was also going to look at this movie that was part of an anthology series that was called Doll Cemetery, but fuck if I know what that movie was about, and it was only an hour long, so... Hikiko has a unique message about both Japanese society and horror that I found interesting, so I want to get into that. Hikiko is a Japanese horror film about a group of girls who run a website about spooky happenings around their town. It's mostly just urban legends and a lot of nothing until a dead body is found in town, and the main character Kaoru makes up a story about what happened to the victim. She posts it to their site claiming that it's the work of the urban legend Hikiko. The next day, while some students have gone to pay their respects, Kaoru goes to take pictures of the site where the body was found. She proceeds to play a mean-spirited prank on her friends by pretending that she found a finger from the corpse. She continues to press her luck by joking to another girl that if she doesn't hurry home, then Hikiko will find her and drag her across town, which is not received well. That night, while she's at home reading all the threads about her lie, another schoolgirl takes a picture by the river of what she believes to be the real Hikiko. Later that night, as Kaoru has a nightmare about the titular being, she awakens to a text about how a man has confessed to killing the child by accidentally dragging him behind his car, and then disposed of the body to avoid trouble. This leads to a backlash on their website as posters begin to criticize them for making a real tragedy into a fictional joke. Things continue to get worse for Kaoru as we see her family at dinner. When her father finds himself out of alcohol, her mother immediately panics and runs to get some from the kitchen, while Kaoru is thrown to the floor and kicked repeatedly, until his wife shows him the alcohol that she's retrieved. Kaoru then proceeds to get up and continue eating dinner as though nothing has happened, a sign that this is a very common thing in her household and one that she and her mother have grown used to. The next morning, they find a small girl crying on a riverbed, saying that something was chasing her. While most of them are concerned and want to help, Kaoru begins to aggressively question if she was being attacked by Hikiko, to the point that the other girls push her away and leave her behind while they tend to the child. This continues the next day when she meets them on the way to school, and they say that they need to hurry or they'll be late and leave her behind. She eats lunch alone, unable to find her friends, and when she does finally find them, they tell her that they don't want to be friends with her, or work on the website with her either. That night, a new girl is found skinned and wounded like the child before them. This leads the girls to get bullied the next day at school, and are accused of killing the child because of their previous update. The other three sell out Kaoru to avoid being bullied themselves, and continue to distance themselves from her as the school begins to bully her. First, they find her hiding in the bathroom, and spray water on her with a hose as she cowers in the corner. We cut to Kaoru receiving another beating from her father. We're not expressly told why, but from the phone call he takes after, we can assume that he was in trouble at work and just taking it out on her. She receives a new message on her website from the ID Hikiko, who says that they believe her and that they are on her side. The next day, as Kaoru is sitting in class, a girl named Asami, the older sister of the second child who was killed, sees her and immediately attempts to stab her in the eye with a pen, only to be stopped by the teacher. At lunch, one of the girls in her class has managed to slip a toad into her bag. When Kaoru leaves the room in disgust, the students chase her down and hold her on the floor as they attempt to force the toad into her mouth. She tries to escape into a conversation she's had with Hikiko, reflecting on her dreams that she's been having about being dragged away by the monster, only to wake up alone. As she's remembering this conversation, one of the girls puts the toad under her shirt and crushes it before stepping on her as she tries to escape. Next day, her classmates pretend to be sympathetic and apologetic for what they've done, but this was all a ruse to distract her from noticing the tacks and glue on her seat. They pierce her flesh as the girls force her down, and they spend minutes pushing her down, rocking her around to keep the flesh moving off and onto the tacks, while mockingly asking her if anything is wrong and calling her Hikiko. Her former friend Tomomi is the only one who never joined in on the bullying, and she looks to the others to see if they should do something to help, but they're just ignoring her. I'm not going to show a clip of this next part, mostly because I don't want to look at it, but the girls later catch her outside of the school and proceeds to take a thin needle and drive it under the nail on her index finger. These final attacks force a meeting between her homeroom teacher and her parents. We don't see what happens during it, but just knowing that her father involved should tell you what's coming next. He proceeds to punch and kick her on the floor as he takes her cell phone and breaks it before locking her in her room and boarding up the door, saying that she's no longer allowed to go to school. She does, however, manage to sneak out and accost Tomomi for her phone so that she can message Hikiko, who has been her only friend through all of this. When Risa lends her phone instead, we find out that Tomomi was the person pretending to be Hikiko before mocking her messages, and during an argument accidentally pushing Kaoru down the school steps, breaking her arm and making her bleed all over her hair and face. Kaoru returns home, injured and delirious, but unable to come to terms with the last of her friends betraying her. She continually cries out for Hikiko until she sees her reflection, which she believes to be her, but not quite right. Hikiko has much worse wounds. She proceeds to take a pen and cut through her face to show the kinds of wounds that Hikiko should have. Her father hears her cutting herself and goes inside to see what's happening. They find her bleeding and wounded, but her father won't let her mom call the police, fearing what the public would think if they had learned of it. Kaoru cuts his throat quickly, before following her mom into the kitchen and stabbing her in the head. From here we jump ahead almost a year, where Tomomi is returning home from somewhere abroad. She gets caught in a rainstorm and goes to hide in a nearby service tunnel. And here we see Kaoru, still bloody, and her arm still misplaced from never being set back in place. She proceeds to violently attack Tomomi as the movie ends. The reason that I wanted to talk about this movie was the overarching story is something that's really interesting to me. If you ever look up this movie by Hikiko 2008 or Scream Girls 2, there is no part 1, by the way. It talks about girls coming and working together to fight an evil spirit that is going to attack their school. So I went in expecting some B-tier schlock that would follow the theme of friendship, like House did. But instead I got the story of a girl who tries to drum up interest in her website and ends up being ostracized from the people she considered her friends and constantly bullied by everyone else to the points of physical torture and attempted murder. She has no solace or comfort from her friends at school or her family at home. Her father is an alcoholic abuser and her mother does nothing. Her only friend is the online user Hikiko, who turns out to be the same friend who sold her out. It's never really clear if her intent was to try to comfort Kaoru from a distance or mock her in some way. She only seems supportive in the glimpses we see of their conversation, but when it's revealed to be Tomomi behind it, she's very smug and mean-spirited about it. When she loses that, she's driven to the depths of despair and becomes a monster that she had been so afraid of. This brings up some questions for the rest of the movie, like what actually happened to Asami's little sister? And who was the person that they managed to take a picture of on the riverbed? I did just want to shine a light on this movie because I like movies like this, where the killer isn't just crazy or violent or even really supernatural. It was just a girl, bullied and tortured and left with nothing until she became a monster. That's gonna do it for this Japanese horror month. I hope you enjoyed this look at what I could put together from another country. Maybe I'll come back to it sometime, or maybe I'll go somewhere else, like India or China. But for now, I think I'm gonna head home to the good old US of A and look at some more lighthearted stuff. If you're interested, the entirety of Hikiko is actually available on YouTube with English subtitles, and nobody can do a damn thing about it. So if you're feeling lonely, maybe you're dealing with some stuff, remember, even if you never like, comment, or subscribe, I still consider you a friend. Have a good night.
We got place to go, things to do, people to see, and we gotta get it done right away.